Hey everyone, and welcome to another Yogi Misfit Sessions. My name is Danny Pomploon, and I'm your host. I'm super excited to be coming at you guys with session number 74, and today is one of our Fierce Calm collaborations. Probably one of my favorite episodes to do just because we get to hear these inspiring stories of how yoga has saved other people's lives. On today's session, I've got Mariel Whitmond on the show, and she's got an incredible story. In addition to sharing her story, we've also got some other awesome Fierce Calm folks, so make sure that you stay tuned afterwards. As always, if you love the show, please remember to leave a review on iTunes. It truly does help our show grow. It lets other people know about it. It allows us to do these amazing stories about how yoga saved people's lives. So make sure that you click on the notes below that tells you how to review on iTunes. Without further ado, here comes the show. Hi, Mariel.
Hello.
Am I saying it right, too? It's Mariel, yeah?
Yeah, it's so funny. Everyone always asks me that question, and I can't hear the difference. It's really bizarre, but it's like the Little Mermaid Ariel with an M.
Yeah, because I would think, I would say, if I heard Mariel or Mariel, Yeah.
I get Mariel's. I don't even know, but yes.
We could just start making it up, too.
Totally. Nicknames work as well. I'm fine with it.
Hey, Em.
Yeah. I actually used to get that a lot in school, so I'm fine with it.
That's awesome. Well, welcome to the show. I love doing these collaborations with Fierce Calm, mainly because I just love everything that they do over there. They're so rad and so inspiring, and it's really cool, the community that they've created, and also just to see people step into their bravery and into their courage, into their truth to share these stories, I think is really just brilliant.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't possibly agree more. I think that's what connects us. I think that's what helps to create unity, is being able to share your story, no matter how big or small it might be, and realizing that you're not alone. I think that was one of the biggest things for me with meeting Lee and dealing with Fierce Calm. It's just so amazing how people respond to other people's stories, because we relate. I think that level of vulnerability is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and I think, a lot of us want to be seen and heard, in some way, shape or form. And I think it's another way to, like you said, another way to find connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, let's dive on in, man. Let's hear it. Let's hear the story from you first. You heard it here first.
Oh my gosh. It was really funny. I was talking to Lee from Fierce Grace about how I think one of my insecurities has always been that my story's not big enough. And I think that's something we all have to catch ourselves at, because we all have a story to tell, and the size really doesn't matter. And sometimes it is the smaller stories that are a little bit more relatable, because I think there are pieces within those stories that exist within all of us. I think we all experience a lot of the same hurdles. And once again, I think realizing that you're not alone can help bring you together. But gosh, my story with yoga is a long one. My mom's a yoga teacher. She found it about 15 years ago when my family moved to Malaysia. We are, I've lived everywhere. I've lived in over 8 countries. My dad's job had us moving around all the time. Growing up, my relationship with my mom was just not a good one, which is sad, because she was the female influence in my life. And I feel like because of that, I struggled a lot with my female relationships, with being around women. But she found yoga, she found meditation, and it completely transformed her life. I can't even begin to explain how. But by the time she found it, I had already left. I had left home at 16 to go to university. I went to Italy first and then ended up in New York. And yoga was something that was, for me, it started to heal our relationship. So it was the one thing we did together. And I think for a very long time, it was something I did for her and not for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well. I think yoga has a very subtle way of drawing you in. So a lot of people come to it for the physical aspects, and you can spend a lot of time kind of just focusing on that area of it. But it was always in the background in my life through everything I was going through. And I know it was influencing the journey that I was on. But from the time I was in my 20s, I was living in LA when I turned, I think, about 21. So I was seeing a therapist, very, very LA. But self-development has been something that is so important to me and something I've been working on for about 15 years now. And I think that combined with yoga in the background, I can't tell you at what exact point yoga transformed my life, but I can tell you that the person that I am today is light years away from the person I was growing up in my 20s. I think because of the damaged relationship I had with my mom and because of the baggage that she carried as well.
Sure.
I grew up, dealing with image issues, dealing with eating disorders, struggling with my female relationships. I moved around so much. I was such a chameleon. They have these interesting studies about military children, how they can be so adaptable. You can put them in any environment and they can survive. They'll be fine. But we never feel like we belong anywhere. And I say we because I'm not a military child, but it felt very much like that.
Sure.
So I had a very lonely, in many ways, childhood, and I feel quite guilty saying that because I'm very fortunate. I have wonderful parents. I had a wonderful upbringing, but that doesn't mean that it was easy. And I suffered with depression when I was younger, and I think a lot of that stemmed from this loneliness. And I've written about it a lot before, but I think loneliness happens when you're constantly looking to find acceptance from people outside of yourself. When you don't accept yourself, but you're looking for others to accept you for that validation, for that self-worth. And I spent a lot of my life searching for that, always dating the wrong guys, always struggling with my friendships. And career-wise, I think I was trying to prove my worth for so long. I fell into the entertainment industry. So I used to represent models at Ford Models in New York and then LA.
No big deal.
No big deal. Just, I'll just throw that out there. But I kid you not, it was like the Devil Wears Prada on crack. It was on a whole other level. It enchants you for a while. I have some amazing memories of some of the parties I'd get invited to just because everyone wanted to be around models, but it grows old. I think a lot of these things kept reminding me that my life was incomplete, that something was missing. And I was still looking for it outside of myself. So by the time I turned 30, I burnt out like completely. I was working for a casting company after that. So in LA, I was working for LA Casting. I took it around Europe. And then eventually was running Europe and South Africa. And I was only 30 years old.
Wow.
When, so it was intense. And I ended up with gastritis, with a hernia in my esophagus, with Hashimoto's. And it was all stress related. And it was, during all that time, again, I had yoga in the background. I was doing a lot of work through therapy and my personal self-development. But it wasn't until that moment that I decided I could no longer do my job, that I realized that my life was going in a direction so far from the one that I had always envisioned. I grew up knowing nothing more than the fact that I wanted a family. And I was 30 and so far from that. I was unhealthy. I wasn't eating well. And I was still battling those same demons of self-worth and self-love and acceptance. So I remember it so clearly. It was in the summer. And I just sat down one day and I was like, you know what? I have to stop living my life for other people. Everything that I'm doing it for my mom, for my dad, for friends. Like it had to stop. And I made a commitment. I said, I'm going to do this for me. And everything, it's freaky to even think about it now, but that summer was the turning point that just completely transformed my life. I ended up leaving my job. I ended up getting healthy. I ended up meeting my husband. I wish I could say yoga was like instantaneous. I will be honest with the yoga story. It took me 2 years from that moment before I realized I even wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But again, it was in the periphery, and I know that it was having that subtle impact of drawing me back towards myself, of teaching me that I needed to find myself in order to live the kind of life that I wanted to be living. And 2 years after I left my job, I remember my mom telling me, she'd been saying it for years. She's like, you have to just do your teacher training. Like, it's time. And I was a little confused about the direction I was going to go in at that point. And I did my teacher training, and again, it was something that I wanted so bad, but I never knew I wanted it, because I had spent most of my life looking at my mom, thinking that she was this incredible human being that was the polar opposite to me. So everything that she was, I wasn't. So it never even occurred to me that I could be a teacher too. It never really occurred to me that, yoga could impact my life in the way it had impacted hers, but differently. And so I started teaching, and I became a life coach. And I can't even describe how different my life is today to what it was before. You talk about yoga saving your life, and sometimes it sounds a little over dramatic, like I wasn't dying.
Sure,
I wasn't, I wasn't in some big accident or anything, but it saved the life that I always dreamt of having, that for a long time I didn't think was possible. It really allowed me just an opportunity to see myself for who I am, to accept myself the way that I am, to find my voice, which I think can be so scary, to be heard, to put that voice out there. And I've honestly, I have not looked back since. I can't think of a time. I'm the happiest I've ever been. I'm expecting my first child, a girl.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. Yay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But and I see this so often in my classes, and I see it so often in yoga. We have these lives that we want to be living, but we keep repeating old patterns and old habits. We keep looking for, a different outcome, but doing the same things over and over again.
Or moving.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. No, absolutely.
But everything else is the problem, not us.
Yeah. No, exactly. Let's just keep it going. But it's really heartbreaking, because I see a lot of me in students that come to class that are in a similar place, that are struggling. And I'm just so grateful that they are coming to yoga class for whatever brings them there. I mean, it can be the physical side of it. It can be whatever it needs to be. But yoga has a really sneaky way of getting to you, of bringing you back to yourself, of giving you those moments of stillness where you can connect with yourself and ask yourself what it is that you want, that you can move and maybe unlock some of these blocked emotions that you've been storing for years, that you can question. Just where you're at in life.
Yeah, there's no way around it. Dharma Mitra says, no yamas, no yoga. It's you can't do I think what we forget is, like, you cannot do the asana without the other things happening.
Absolutely.
So although, as teachers, like, what our skill set is supposed to be in a public class setting is to teach asana. That's what it is. It's an asana class, but the other stuff is naturally happening because of it.
Absolutely. I couldn't possibly agree more. And I think that's really beautiful. And for me, having found something, we were talking about this before we started, but to do something that we love so deeply, it almost doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
but it's wonderful, but also I really think what yoga did for me was it taught me about connection. And I don't think human connection is possible without us, one, being true to ourselves about who we are, what our story is, accepting that story, and then having the courage to share it, to realize that at the end of the day, we come into yoga rooms so often, and it can feel so, again, lonely. We come in, we're on our mat, it's our personal, it's not like people necessarily are always socializing, but there is something about yoga that brings us all together. To see people
Yeah.
moving together in a room, to see the energy that can combine, to see, and again, I keep feeling that sense of we're all going through the same journey. We're all on this journey together. And it's such an incredibly powerful feeling when you realize that you're not alone anymore. That was one of the hardest things for me growing up, is I just remember feeling really lonely. And I don't want people to feel that way. I definitely would love to help my daughter not feel that way when she grows up. But yeah, there's something about yoga that definitely unifies us, that hopefully gives us the courage to be vulnerable so that we can connect on a deeper level. I think we live in an unfortunately very superficial world, with a lot of false imagery and a lot of false realities. If we can
That's an
connect.
understatement. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a total
Oh,
understatement.
yeah.
I like
But
what you
yeah,
did
go
say,
for
that,
it.
like, we do get to come onto these, little pieces of plastic and, on our own individual mats, but we get to come together, and that
Yeah,
because of that, there is such thing as collective consciousness,
for
coming
sure.
together and sharing four walls is huge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's powerful. And hopefully, um, yeah, hopefully it can bring people back to that space of realizing that we're all unique. We're all special in our own ways. Everyone's story is valid. And I think ultimately we're all just looking for connection. We're all looking to be there
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, everyone, I think, yeah, there's a sense of wanting to be, we're social creatures, so there's a sense
Yeah.
of wanting to be seen and heard, and whether that's by, five close friends or 50 of your close friends, I think people really just want to, yeah, they just want to know that they exist, and that people see them and value them for their gifts and their truths.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny in class. I always like to finish with some kind of inspiring talk or reading, and I love that people come up to me after class and they'll be like, It's funny sometimes with Instagram it's the same, but they'll be like, I don't know how, but you're saying things that are exactly what I needed to hear today. And I'm kind of looking at them and I'm like, because
This
it's
was for me.
exactly, yeah, exactly. I was like, this was exactly what I needed to hear today. So I always find that funny. But again, just a reminder that we're all in it together.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. I think it's easy to get caught up in that. The moving forward of things. Everything just moves so fast, and we live in these cities, and we live in this world, and it's easy to get caught up in that energy. I mean, it's exactly what it is. It's energy that's moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
But it's part of the practice. The practice reminds us to stop and to come back over and over and over and over again. Every single
Absolutely.
time we just get to pause and come back again, and continue that. Come back to the place where we started.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
So
that's,
what's it like now, and what's next?
wow. So again, my journey teaching has been a fascinating one, because when I first started, I definitely started it with the intention of not teaching, and then got the bug.
I love
And
that. I'm leading teacher training right now, and the very first thing I do on day one is, who plans on teaching? And like
yeah,
only 3 people, and
yeah,
now it's like halfway, and I'm like, 17 of you guys.
everyone, yeah, exactly. Um, but I was very lucky with the opportunities I was given. I had an incredible year last year. Um, and it was exciting riding that wave. And then I got pregnant, which is what I've always wanted. But now I've definitely been battling those feelings of, gosh, I'm going to have to put that momentum on hold. And will that slow things down? Does it even
Mm.
matter? And I have to remind myself that um, it's not a race, that some of the
Hmm.
best things happen with time.
Hmm.
That having a child is something I've wanted my entire life.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting kind of mind battle of, I just found what I love so much, and I'm about to
Mm.
start this other journey that I've been so desperate for. How will I manage them together?
Right.
And I don't think I'll know until it happens. But for the time being, I'm excited to be doing a few festivals coming up in the summer. I'll be doing Sweat Life and Women's Health Live here in London. I've got a huge event at Ministry of Sound this Saturday with my partner in crime, Richie Bostock. He does a lot of breath work here in London.
Is he the breath guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
Okay.
lovely. He's such a dude. We always joke that he's my work husband, but it started getting confusing for people. They're like, "Oh, your husband." I'm like, "No, it's a joke. It's my work." Okay, never mind.
I have a few work wives.
Yeah, there you go. They're great. It's wonderful.
It is nice. Yeah.
But he's such a good friend, and we do something that we call Omana together. So we mix dynamic movement through yoga with the amazing things he's doing with breath work. And we're both big fans of music and the power of music to really move you, I guess. So Ministry of Sounds, we did it once last year. And it was just the most incredible thing I've ever been a part of. We had 90 people flowing in a epic old time club with live DJ sets. It was very cool. So we're doing it again on Saturday. Yeah.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I hope I get to bump into you while I'm out there. I'm going to be out in London in June, so it'd be very cool to like hang out and say hi.
That would be amazing. I would absolutely love that. Yes, I've heard such incredible things about you from
lies, fairy tales, and fallacies. It's all. Don't believe the hype.
I'll be judging. No, no. I really look forward to it. It'll be great.
Mariel, thanks for sharing your story again.
Nice.
I'm just such a big fan of it. I think that, one, we were, saying like, I love that I get to do this. I love that this is a part of my day was to like sit down and have this awesome conversation with you. But two, like, someone else out there that's listening to this could really find that courage and the strength to want to be vulnerable with somebody else. And I think that's worth all of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm really grateful for being on here, and I look forward to connecting in June.
Thanks again for sharing your voice. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you.
And for the next part of the show, we're going to feature stories from people from the Fierce Calm tribe. First up, we have Blair Sanning, who shares how yoga saved her life.
First and foremost, I am not alone. Be in Love Yoga here talking about how yoga saved my life. It took me quite a long time to realize that my struggle was not my own, that I am like 1 in 5 adults in the US that suffer symptoms of a mental disorder. Realizing that this collective body of beautiful people who are also suffering existed and that I could help them took a long time. First, I had to admit I wasn't as strong as I thought. I had to actually experience the feelings I numbed and hid. I had to break down and acknowledge my worst, scariest, and sickest thoughts. Next, I went through the process of receiving counseling, alongside my journey to become a licensed counselor, to provide those same services and ultimately teach people to help others receive those services. After 4 years of counseling, I felt great and I gave myself a break. Although I had learned skills to manage symptoms, identify feelings, and get help, without intentional practice and with some major life changes, a resurgence of symptoms returned and I was once again feeling alone, anxious, and depressed. Then I started yoga. I had no idea that yoga for me would be about confronting hidden emotions, working through trauma, and the yuckiness of finally loving myself and my flaws. Honestly, had I known that, I might have not shown up out of habit to numb and avoid. But it was also about becoming more self-aware, introspective, meditative, serene, and ultimately mentally healthy. When I was sitting in my first yoga class, listening to the instructor connect what I was thinking to what I was feeling and doing in my body, I caught a glimpse of my counseling experience and training. I was hooked. What I found through consistent practice is that yoga is the introduction course, the Mental Health 101 class for self-awakening, self-awareness, and lessening the fear and approachability of self-explorative practices. For those who practice yoga, you'll know that yoga is the softening of the ego, the non-stigmatized means to reflective practice, the peak in the window to tranquility and self-acceptance, and the building of skills that serve for emotional management. In other words, for me, yoga was the foot back in the door to counseling. It allowed me to continue my journey to maintain my health and my life. Yoga continues to bring me peace and continues to keep me alive as I battle through mental illness, and also to help others battle their illness as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you find yoga is just as helpful in your life.
And lastly, we have Kara Forrester.
Hi, my name is Kara Forrester, and this is the story of how yoga has changed my life. It makes me laugh, actually, because the old Kara would never have believed that yoga could change her life. And I can actually see her rolling her eyes at that. Because back then, for me, exercise was just a means to an end. And if I wasn't sweating buckets and enduring every single minute and feeling pushed to the limit, the no pain, no gain, it wasn't worth it. And then 2 years ago this August, I was diagnosed with MS and everything changed. My future at that point became uncertain, and I was acutely aware of the limitations that this condition might bring, and what lay ahead at that point seemed really dark. So, to prove that I was okay, I did really the only thing that I knew how to do back then. I worked harder, and I did kettlebell workouts and 5K runs, and I took on more projects at work, and the inevitable happened. I became so tired, mentally and physically. I just crashed, and that wall that I had built up to cope collapsed too. So I was left feeling helpless, hopeless, and just completely defeated. I knew the wall had to be rebuilt, but at that point, I knew it had to be different and I had to do it differently. So I decided quite early on that one of the bricks that I wanted in this new wall was to feel physically fit. And at that point, my therapist suggested, well, why don't you try different classes like Pilates or yoga? And I remember walking into my first yoga class about 9-10 months ago now, just not knowing what to expect. I chose the class, I'll be honest, I chose the class because I thought it would be easy. It would be an easy exercise. How many times have you heard that said about yoga, right? But I thought I'd be able to cruise through it without any effort, and I was completely unprepared for the effect yoga would have on me. And looking back, I didn't realise it, but that day, that first step onto that mat was for me the first step on a new life journey. From the moment I started, I absolutely loved it. Over the weeks, over the time that I spent in the yoga studio, I grew more confident again. I moved from the back of the class to the front of the class. And although I had developed a new physical strength and flexibility, yoga was teaching me so much more than how to just, touch the floor with my head or stand on one leg. For me, when I'm on the mats, I'm truly at peace. For me, every pose feels like its own meditation, and the connection I feel to my body, to the sense of something greater, to something bigger than me, it just can't be measured. I've got energy, I'm strong, I'm not anxious Kara, I'm not MS Kara, I'm not depressed Kara. On my mats, I'm present, I'm connected, and I can just be. I'm at peace, I'm in balance, and the most amazing thing is that yoga has rippled out from the mat into other areas of my life. I had the confidence to write again. I've set up my own online magazine called The Queendom of Fife. And I'm also, most importantly to me, a more connected mum. Now, I would want to pay those gifts forward. I want to pass on what yoga has done for me and changed my life on to others. So I'm training to be a yoga teacher. And during one of my training weekends, for the first time in my entire life, I managed to do a headstand. And I realised that when life flips you upside down, you've just got to learn to love standing on your head. Namaste.
That's it for the 4th edition of the Yogi Misfit Sessions with Fierce Calm. I'm so grateful to everyone who shared their stories. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to do so. Until the next Yogi Misfit Sessions, this is Danny saying peace out.